So obviously we all know that Battlefield 6 delayed Season 2. It's been causing a bit of an uproar online with some people who are completely upset about this. Meanwhile, there's also a party of people that are perfectly fine and think that it's okay to have delays so long as the actual product is good. Now obviously Battlefield 6 was hyped like crazy, so of course there's going to be a lot more disappointed people who think that the game didn't meet their expectations. So far, I think that Battlefield 6 is a good game. I just do think that there are some issues that should have been fixed well ahead of this game's launch. However, this is just kind of the nature with AAA games these days, just releasing like this. I don't think it's completely broken or literally unplayable. I just think that with the live service model that they've kind of pushed, that it's just making people more bored because there's not a lot of content compared to other games in the exact same frame of time. While the game itself is fun, I do think that this game is genuinely lacking in things like maps. But obviously that's not what I wanted to talk about for this video. Today I wanted to talk about the next update that's going to be dropping on January 20th. This is going to be a pretty decent patch for quality of life fixes and things like that. So I wanted to go through these patch notes and kind of break down what exactly they're changing, what they're fixing here in Season 1, as well as what we can expect to see for the remainder of the extension period of Season 1. But before we do that, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications set to all so you can stay up to date with all of the content here in the channel, and let's just dive right on into it. So first things first, the update is going to be dropping pretty early on January 20th. Basically, the big three things that they highlighted here are that they've improved responsiveness, consistency, and sprint behavior for melee attacks, including with knives and the sledgehammer. They've also updated jet combat balance by reducing jet cannon effectiveness against other air vehicles, and they've updated and refined the UI and HUD across both multiplayer and RedSec to improve a bunch of things, which of course I'm going to talk about later in this video. For the most part, a lot of these changes are related to bugs, glitches, and just general things that needed to be fixed in the game. Of course, there's still some things that they haven't talked about for this patch, but I'm assuming that those things have been kind of pushed back to Season 2's big update, which Season 2 is going to be dropping on February 17th, so we do still have a lot of time for them to fix some of the other issues in the game. With vehicles, they've basically done two things. One is they fixed an issue where vehicles could explode when a takedown was performed on an enemy soldier lying on top of them. I didn't even know that was a glitch. I don't know how that happened, but that's kind of funny. And then the second one is that they reduced jet cannon damage against other jets and helicopters, so it requires approximately 40% more hits to destroy enemy air targets. I don't know how people who main air vehicles feel about this. Let me know in the comments below. I don't really play with air vehicles much, so I can't really say how it feels and if this is a good or bad thing. So do let me know in the comments what you think about that. In terms of weapons, they have fixed a couple of problems. So a couple of weapon attachments were basically not performing the way that they should have been performing, or some of them were causing the gun to basically kind of malfunction in a way. So for instance, the RPKM iron sights had a problem where if you use the short barrel at the same time, it would shoot lower than it should have. With the TR7, if you use the light barrel, it would incorrectly improve muzzle velocity, so it would basically not do what it was supposed to do. If you have a bipod attachment, it no longer displays as always providing a hip fire accuracy bonus, because basically that only happens if you actually deploy the bipod. So that's a pretty important distinction to make. In case you were wondering why it wasn't actually doing anything, you actually have to deploy the bipod, and they have updated it to say that. They also did fix the bipod's mount input behavior for a couple of movements, and so now basically the bipod mount follows the melee button. In terms of melee improvements, this was apparently something that they focused on a lot for this upcoming patch, but they improved the attack speed for knife melee attacks, they improved buffering behavior for knife and sledgehammer attacks, and they also fixed the consistency of melee damage timing against both enemies and the environment. So another thing that they did for melee attacks is they improved how sprint is interrupted when you're actually performing a melee attack. So it's now only interrupted until the attack reaches its target rather than for the full duration of the animation. They've also improved the firing range so that when the dummies are actually getting back up, they can still take damage. So that's more of a good way to simulate what it's actually going to be like when you're playing the game. I do wish that the firing range included more moving dummies. I think that would have been pretty good as well, just because that's how you play the game. Usually you're not necessarily going to be fighting somebody obviously sitting in one place the whole time. It happens, but not always. And then if you shoot with a suppressor, it now emits a small muzzle flash when viewed from close range only. So for gadgets, they did two things here. They fixed an issue where the GDPIS was not destroyed when it was targeted by the XFGM-6D recon drone defibrillators or the repair tool. And the second problem here is that they fixed a problem where the sniper decoy didn't properly hide scope glints from the nearby snipers. So that's definitely a big one here. That should be fixed as well, and it should perform how it was intended to perform. So for the assault ladder, they did a couple of fixes here as well. This has kind of been a big thing that some players were hoping to see fixed because the assault ladder was just kind of having some glitches and wasn't behaving as intended. So the first thing here is they fixed an issue where ladders positioned above the player could not be entered. They fixed an issue where soldiers could be launched unexpectedly when attempting to enter a ladder. I've seen this one before in some clips online. Definitely a very annoying issue. It's a little bit funny, but obviously not how the game is intended to perform, so that's been fixed. And they also improved soldier animations when climbing those ladders. For the UI and the HUD, this is where a pretty big change was made. A lot of people were actually requesting this change beforehand, and they finally responded. So starting January 20th, you're going to be able to customize the color of your reticle inside weapon and gadget scopes. This is a pretty big deal. Some people just like to change the color. Other people genuinely are colorblind and they have to pick a different color for visibility. They also fixed an issue where the home screen focus navigation could become locked to the bulletin, and fixed cases where weapon menus displayed incorrect reload time stats for LMGs. Soldier lighting has also gotten improvements on the front end, including to enhance the visual quality of the characters. Some people were definitely complaining about this. I saw on Reddit, for instance, some people were sharing screenshots of how the soldiers looked in the menus, how things looked pretty low quality and things like that, and especially for a game released in the modern day, you'd expect not to see that, so hopefully that improvement is going to fix things. I do think it was mostly just the lighting issue. And then they also added an option for reticle color to correctly update the colors for thermal scopes and other supported gadgets. Under the visual effects and video, they just kind of did a small one here where they adjusted the explosion particle effects by lowering the shockwave force. It's probably just for visual improvement and clarity, of course. If you're a RedSec player, you've probably noticed some issues with the jump landing movement speed reduction. They have fixed that so that it behaves like the other multiplayer experiences. And for Gauntlet, they fixed a small problem in data extraction where the drone could disappear permanently if the drives were deposited at the exact moment it landed. Pretty weird little kind of bug there, but if that's happened to you, that's now been fixed in Gauntlet. I haven't played Gauntlet yet. Do let me know in the comments if it's worth it or not. Again, for RedSec, they did some improvements to the UI and HUD. For Battle Royale, they fixed an issue where the armor bar would disappear intermittently, and then an issue was fixed where the Airburst Incendiary Launcher icon appeared as a grenade in your loot feed. And then for Gauntlet, they fixed a problem where the armor bar could disappear after quickly editing a loadout. So those are basically all the fixes. Not a huge update or anything like that, but it's definitely improving a couple of things here and there. Obviously, we know that on January 27th, we're going to be getting some new content, which is a new Battle Pass path and some new weekly challenges. I know some people are really anticipating maps and things like that, but of course we do have to wait till season 2 because we are still in season 1 officially. I think Battlefield 6 could really recover if they just deliver a solid season 2. I honestly think that there are some people that are just kind of being a little too negative. I don't really think the game is that bad or anything like that. There's problems, but for the most part, it's a Battlefield game. It delivers that experience. I know some people argue that it's not really Battlefield or it plays too much like Call of Duty, but after having played Call of Duty for a long time, I can tell you it's really not that. It feels very different, it plays different, and it has a completely different gameplay vibe. But anyways, I've been a fan of both franchises, so I do feel that there are differences between them, and I still think Battlefield 6 has kept up the thing that makes Battlefield, to me, more fun than Call of Duty. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about all these changes in the comments below, how you feel about the delay for Season 2, how you feel about the whole thing in general, basically with Battlefield 6 right now. Leave a like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications set to all so you can stay up to date with all of the content here in the channel. And that's all for today, folks.